This episode is brought to you by Podbean, the easiest, most affordable option to get started in podcasting. Stay tuned to hear how you can get your first month of Podbean for free. Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Committed Critics, a pop culture podcast where we're not only committed to our opinions, but also each other. Aww.
Yay, we did it this time. The girls didn't do it last time.
I wanted it that way.
Being
Well,
different.
if you listen closely to the episode, you can hear Zac in the background going, "Aw."
I hear the abrupt pause and nothing. I'm fine, I'll do it.
Oh, did you just add it in post?
No, I heard I was in the other room and I'm like, God dang
I
it.
see.
They didn't do it, so I just did it posterior, and then Maggie mocked me.
Yes.
And blew it.
I wouldn't really surprised if you did it in post. But speaking of hosts, I'm Kevin Lau.
Hey, he's back.
Yay!
I am Zachary Wright.
And I'm Jordan Smearman. Ryan is not here today, so I'm here instead.
Man, it's weird going second.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie here.
Yeah, Jordan is like the replacement for Ryan. I'm not sure how that works canonically, but you know, when Ryan's not here, Jordan is most likely
Is
here.
it
I
like
would
one
assume.
minority for another?
Oh my God, no. One minority for another. No, that's not how it works.
I was like, I almost made that joke, and I was like, I don't know. I don't know where that joke was going, but apparently nowhere.
We're adding
my
some estrogen to this
God.
episode instead. How about that?
There was so much estrogen last episode. It's fine.
I mean, I feel like it helps with the topic of this episode, which is talking about independent movies, and most specifically the Independent Spirit Awards, which is starting to get more and more of the following world demand of like female filmmakers and more filmmakers of minority. I can't speak.
Man, that was such a segue. I was gonna give you crap for it, but then you really brought it around with the female filmmaker.
Bringing it around.
Around town.
Anyway, so today we were talking about the Independent Spirit Film Awards.
Woo.
Kevin, what the hell are those?
So the Independent Spirit Awards is an annual award ceremony that is like the Oscars, but for independent movies. It was founded back in 1984. It was originally called the Findy or Findy Awards, short for Friends of Independence. So I guess you would pronounce it Findy,
Okay.
spelled Findie.
Mm-hmm.
Findie. There you go.
Findie.
That's how you spell it.
Yes.
But later it was renamed to the Independent Spirit Awards in 1986. And then the ceremony aims to represent smaller independent films that may not receive the same recognition from the Oscars, because the Oscars is more about like more films that have gone through the mainstream studio circulation, whereas independent films don't always have that opportunity. There's few that do, which we will talk about later, but most of them do not.
It's funny with how many category of films there are, because like first coming to film school, I'm like, oh, the Oscars are like where like these independent like artsy films are.
Mm-hmm.
No, they're just the main. Oscars just the mainstream awards that are basically all whitewashed to a degree.
To a degree. I mean, some indie ones still get in there,
Right, yeah.
which especially like recently we've got some pretty good ones.
Mhm.
Not the one that where Green Book won was not a good year,
Oof.
but the one before after that was pretty good,
Hey.
and before it was pretty good too.
Parasite, solid.
Mm-hmm.
I know
Moonlight,
Parasite,
also solid.
Moonlight.
Glad La La Land didn't win by accident.
We're not going to talk about the fact that Oscars mishap, but
Yeah. I mean, I feel like I was the only one that predicted that La La Land was going to win Best Director, but then Moonlight was going to win Best Picture, but no one believed me. But then it happened. So there you go. I was right.
In
My
your
Oscar
face.
predictions,
There you
100% right all the time.
attaboy, Kevin. I'm proud of you. Woo! So I guess that leaves the question, or begs the question rather, Kevin, what technically is an indie film or an independent film?
So the definition of an indie film is pretty much the same as an independent game, which we talked about in an early episode with Davey Peppers. Highly recommend checking that out. Couldn't make it, but whatever. It is what it is. An independent film is produced kind of like outside of the major film studio, where like the people working on the film, like the director or the writer and all that stuff, are the ones that are producing the film with money outside their own pocket. Sometimes there are studios, like smaller studios, that also put in the bill for the production as well. There's a lot of those all over the place. Like if you have a small video production company in your town, most likely if they produce a film, it's going to be called an independent
Right,
film.
Okay.
Even though they are a studio.
So I
so-
guess I was just gonna say, let's give an examples. Like, what's a regular like mainstream film versus like an indie film?
Yeah, so like a mainstream film is kind of like something from Disney or Warner Brothers. Like the Marvel movies are definitely studio films,
Right. Yes.
and everything Disney pumps out is a studio film because it's all they create the idea in house. They hire people to make the films, and obviously they have huge budgets to work with, but also like they basically in charge of all the distribution. Everything is generated from in house of their big massive studio that is part of all the filmmaking unions out there. So they are part of the club of mainstream distribution. Same thing with Warner Brothers with like the Harry Potter movies. Like all those are done in house in the studio. They producers of the owners of the studio have these ideas. They buy the rights. They hire the people. All that stuff. They handle everything in the distribution. So an independent studio doesn't quite have those luxuries. Like they can still come up with the ideas in house, but like some of them have a limited budget. Depends on the people who own it and how much money they have. But they don't have the distribution. Like they can make the movie themselves, but when it comes to distributing the film to make sure it goes to theaters or at least on Blu-ray, DVD, or digital, that's more up to them. Unless like they sell the complete movie to Warner Brothers or something, and then the Warner Brothers just puts it all in theaters.
Right. So to break it down, basically, like the project can be funded by a smaller studio or independently by the filmmaker themselves. And then, like, for example, it can still be qualified as indie even if Universal decides to distribute it to the theaters. Correct?
Correct. Yeah. So and then there's a lot of times where like Netflix. So I think a good example would be like Netflix movies. A lot of those are independent movies, actually.
Right. Oh, okay.
So just because it has Netflix original on the cover doesn't mean Netflix actually produced it. Most of the time, it is another studio producing it, and Netflix is in charge of the distribution.
Right.
So they get sold to exclusively be on their platform.
There's more. There's more of a chance it'll be watched on Netflix than it will be in a film circuit or in awards and stuff like that.
Especially now.
Right.
Yeah. Especially now.
And then yeah, right. But yeah, so like not saying that every Netflix original is not made by Netflix, but like just keep in mind that like Stranger Things is produced by Netflix. There's a few other feature films as well that are produced solely by Netflix, but a lot of the time if it's like Netflix presents a production, the what it says is the production, whatever the name is, that's the actual company that made the movie. When it says presents, that means they are just in charge of distributing the movie.
Cool.
Oh, okay.
Cool. Now that we got the terminology and definitions out of the way, let's break down so what's an example of like a really popular indie movie, Kevin?
So you'd be very surprised how many indie movies are extremely popular and part of the mainstream culture. One movie I think will actually surprise you is The Breakfast Club from the 80s, which is like a staple of 80s culture. Some may call it the ultimate coming of age film.
Yes.
I think it still holds up pretty well considering some of the gender takes.
Very little representation in that movie.
Yeah. But yeah, so even though it has the Universal Studios logo in the front, Universal was just in charge of the distribution. It was funded by two smaller studios and from John Hughes himself, and had a budget of $1 million, which is really small considering the success that it had.
Mm-hmm.
It's like it's made millions and millions since then. But it was all, it was a small budget. They shot in one location so they could keep the cost low of, moving around and location scouting and all that stuff. Like they only had to lock down the school and everyone kind of lived near the school. So it's like, it's really like, made it really easy to kind of like do that on such a small budget. Like you may think $1 million is a huge budget, but when you work on a movie, there's like hundreds of people working on it. Not only during the production, but also before, during the writing stages, the planning stages, and then the editing stages, and then paying for distribution as well. $1 million actually doesn't get you much.
Not even like in the 80s either.
Right.
Like $1 million, like back in the day, even still wasn't a lot of money.
Yeah, no, it's very small compared to like, stuff like the Terminator and stuff like that.
I think even like $10 million is a small budget, like technically.
Technically, yes. I mean, and then in the 80s, like these studios had like you keep in mind in the 80s, these studios had money to burn. Like they were making blockbuster after blockbuster. Like people were going to theaters. It was because there was no like home VHS yet. There was no way to watch a movie at home unless you like watch it aired on TV, censored.
Okay.
So like the movies were like the place to go.
Yeah, if you wanted to see a movie at like before when it came out, like or at any point in time, really, you had to go to a theater
Or the drive-in.
or a drive-in.
Yeah.
Gross.
No.
Drive-ins, you say gross, even though drive-in is probably the cleanest way to watch a movie.
I
Exactly.
know, but drive-ins are more just like for the spectacle and the experience. You're not there to enjoy the movie.
What are you there for, Zach?
Oh,
The food and
Uh-huh.
the camaraderie.
uh-huh. Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
I can't go to a drive-in because half my speakers in my car don't work. So
Oh, that is a big oof.
hashtag living that indie film life.
I'll never forget seeing The Amazing Spider-Man 2 in the drive-in and not knowing what was happening. And the next thing I know, Gwen Stacy's dead. And I'm like, oh, that was quick.
I feel like that's not really a drive-in movie because I watched it in IMAX 3D and that was like that. I felt like that was the experience for that movie.
Yeah, I don't know why they picked The Amazing Spider-Man 2 to put on the drive-in theater, but whatever.
Money. Get the crowds in.
The best movie I saw at the drive-in was Sky High.
Oh my God.
It
Classic.
was amazing. That is the most like early 2000s thing I can think of is going to see Sky High at the drive-in.
It's really classic,
Yes.
but not an indie movie.
No.
Still Disney.
Dang.
So, but some more examples of independent films is like the Blair Witch Project, which I wanted to point out that independent films usually have like more creative freedom than mainstream films do, because mainstream films they have to go through like a whole process of like, oh, how do we appeal to the most consumers possible, whereas an independent film is more like a person's passion project. It is, they have their own vision and they have their own way of getting to that vision. With Blair Witch Project, it was the first found footage movie, so it was like it was made by like a group of film students. I think it was like 3 film students and then plus some actors, just filming in the woods, making up the story as they go along. The whole production of that, you can read it on Wikipedia. It's kind of messed up, but it got like a really good performance. So it's like, and it did really well. So since it's a success story, it's like not as bad, but if it was a failure, then it's bad.
It would have been, let's not talk about that one.
Right. But it was so unique, and it got a lot of traction because of how unique and its marketing strategy of making it like a real life event. So like when people watched it, my mom included, they thought it was like a real event that was documented for the longest time.
I thought it was too before I looked it up.
Yeah, no, it's because it looks so real. Like the acting feels so real, and but outside of Blair Witch Project, another popular indie film would be Get Out, which came out a few years ago by Jordan Peele, and Whiplash, which
I
also
love
2012,
Whiplash.
2013?
I thought it was 2014.
Oh, 2014 probably, yeah.
I think
Yeah, because La La Land was 2016.
Look, the years just kind of blend together at this point, so...
I still think, or in 2021, I still think like 2015 was like 2 years ago. Like, so.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I saw a photo that said like Shrek came out 20 years ago, and I remember watching Shrek when it first came out. So
What was that fact where it's like it's entirely possible that Rosa Parks has seen the first 2 Shrek films?
Yes.
It's hilarious.
So-
But, Jordan, you were gonna say something?
Yeah, I have a question. So Whiplash is considered an indie film. Is La La Land also considered an indie film too? Or
La La Land is not an indie film because it was funded by Lionsgate, which I think by that time was no longer an independent studio.
okay.
Lionsgate distributes a lot of indie films, but I think as a studio themselves, like they are no longer indie starting in like 2010s or something.
Okay.
Gotcha.
There's like a weird loophole that they kind of fall into. Get Out is an indie film. It is produced by Blumhouse, which is an independent studio, which they have a really interesting business practice where every film they greenlight gets a $5 million budget, no more, no less. So
Okay.
every film kind of get from their studio kind of gets a fair shot. I can go into more about their business practices in another episode, but basically like, there's a lot of Blumhouse films that do get finished, but then never see the light of day because Jason Blum watches the movie and the screener is like, nah, I don't like it. We're not going to distribute it. And then the movie just, it's just shelved, gone forever.
Aw.
Blacklisted.
Yeah, well, not blacklisted, but it just doesn't see the light of day, unfortunately. And apparently, like from my research, some of them are really good, but it just didn't meet the producers' standards. But Fantasy Island did, so who knows what Jason Blum is up to these days.
So is A24 independent, like indie films?
Mm-hmm, yeah.
Okay.
A24 is an independent studio, and they handle more distribution, but I do think they produce. They have produced a couple movies here and there. Like they produced The Farewell, which is which from 2019, I believe.
Yes.
Yeah, and that was starring Awkwafina. That was a Chinese American film that was filmed both in America and in China. But the problem with that one when it came to award season is that people the Oscars were kind of labeling it as a international film instead of just a regular American film, even though it is produced by American studios. It is A24 partnered with a Chinese studio to kind of fully fund the movie, but A24 was in charge of the American distribution. So
it should have been an American film,
right? Exactly.
Or it is American film, yeah.
It's bilingual, so like they're so literally, I think it's literally split 50-50 between how much English and Chinese is spoken. Really fantastic movie. It's on Amazon Prime. Highly recommend it. It won the Spirit Award last time for Best Picture.
Oh, cool.
So
yeah, I think Whiplash was my first like indie film. I can actually like have seen and be able to like review and be like, wow, this is really good. So I love Whiplash.
I feel like Whiplash was the real like a jump start for the indie film scene. Especially for this past decade. Like this decade, 2010, we're seeing a lot more indie films, and that's because my theory is that we have more distribution is much better now. With like Netflix and also just the idea of digital distribution. So like you don't have to fork over the cost to like get your DVDs and Blu-rays printed, and hopefully a store would sell them. You can put it up on Vudu or iTunes or whatever, and then like people can watch them right there without no money off your back, essentially. It's I mean, obviously you still have to pay to get into theaters, all that stuff, and there's a whole other rules and loopholes, but I do think it's getting better. I mean, maybe it's just me and my own kind of like my own little echo chamber, whereas like I'm diving deeper into more of the independent film scene with like the people I've been working with and people I'm following on social media, that I see independent films more, but I feel like some of them are hitting the mainstream more often too, or at least like the trailers are like Swiss Army Man is an independent film. Like I don't think many people watched it, but like when the trailer came out, people were talking about it. At least.
Cool.
Also, fantastic movie, Swiss Army Man. Really weird. So if you're not used to indie films, don't watch it yet. But it's one of my favorite movies.
Kevin's pimping out his favorite indie film ever.
Hey, right. But on that note, we're going to take a break, and when we come back, we'll talk about what the challenge is, because there is a challenge for this Independent Spirit Awards. We'll be right back. Starting a podcast? Try a Podbean Unlimited hosting plan. It's what we use here at Committed Critics, giving us the opportunity to have our show on Pandora, iHeartRadio, and even Spotify. You can get your first month of unlimited hosting for free on us by going to podbean.com/committedcrits, just like our Twitter, or by clicking the link in the description. Podbean, the easiest, most affordable option to get started in podcasting. And welcome back to Committed Critics. Did you have a good break, guys? Did you have a nice little experience listening to our ads?
Oh, yeah, the ads are great. We're doing... I love listening to the ads, Kevin.
The ads, the best part of Hulu.
And YouTube, come on.
But with Hulu, it's more annoying because you have to pay to watch it with ads. I remember when Hulu was free with ads. I don't like the new setup, but whatever.
Yeah, Hulu's only okay, but...
It's fine. It's not Netflix. It's not Criterion Channel. It's whatever.
Jesus.
But as we said before we entered the break, we're going to initiate a challenge. So I have a challenge for you, Zac and Jordan.
What up?
About the Independent Spirit Awards. Are you ready to hear what it is?
Listen, the last time you challenged, I had to watch anime. Is it anime again? Please
It's
tell me it's not
anime. Surprisingly, there is no anime on this list. I don't think that. Yeah, Spirit Awards doesn't have an animation category because animation usually not when it's indie, it's really bad.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like you've probably seen those like Ratatouille or whatever, or the
Ratatouille. Sorry.
Yeah, that. And it looks like garbage. Not to say that there are indie animated films that are good, but you'll find them at the Oscars before you find them at the Spirit Awards.
So the challenge, Kevin.
Yeah, my challenge for you guys is to watch as many of the Independent Spirit Award nominees as you can before April 22nd, 2021, which is when the Spirit Awards air. We will talk more about when that airs and how that airs when we come back for our predictions episode. But for now, April 22nd is the goal, the deadline. It's going to air that night, I believe, 6 p.m., but we'll see.
What's it on? Do we know? Like, it
is on one of the main channels. It's not. Let me look that up real quick.
It's not an independent channel.
It's not an indie channel.
It's not. What's an indie channel?
You don't need a tin cup and a string to watch it.
Go to the drive-in and watch it.
But Kevin, how do I know what films are in the Spirit Awards?
Well, you can look it up just by going to filmindependent.org.
That's the lame way.
That's a lame way, but if you want
traffic to come to Committed Critics, how do you know?
If you want to support us and Committed Critics, I have put together a detailed list of the 30 films, the 30 nominees that are the most I consider to be the most accessible, either on HBO Max, Netflix, Hulu. If you have a library card, you can see if you have access to Canopy with a K, or Hoopla, Hoopla. If you have a Roku device.
What's a library card?
Oh my God.
Oh, a library. Well, you see, Zach, maybe we should save that for another episode. Gonna call can of worms on that one.
Committed Critics episode. What's a library?
My mom just came through the screen and slapped you.
So it says it'll be airing on IFC, which is the International Independent Film or whatever. Independent Film Channel. I think that's what it's called. I know it airs on one of the main channels. Like it's on ABC or Fox or something. Maybe not Fox, or CBS.
Okay.
You can also,
when it gets closer, we'll tweet it out.
Right, we'll tweet it out. I think you can watch it online too. You can stream it. I would love to live tweet it, but we will see when we get there.
Cool, sounds good.
But yeah, so if you find in the link in the description, you will find a list through a Google Doc with the list of movies that are I consider to be most accessible. Highly recommend checking them out. If you have a Roku device, you can have the Canopy and Hoopla app on your TV. Otherwise, you might have to watch some of them on your computer, but it is what it is. So now moving on, have you guys seen any of the nominees so far? Because I've seen 4. I've seen the half of it on Netflix, really good. I've seen The Assistant on Canopy, pretty good, could be better. I've seen Sound of Metal on Amazon Prime, also really good. And then I've watched Palm Springs on Hulu, which thankfully did not have ads, thank God. But I absolutely loved Palm Springs too.
So funny enough, me and Jordan watched Palm Springs back. Was it last fall?
Yeah,
so like October-ish probably.
When it released.
It released in like January, I think. Kevin, when did Palm Springs come out? Off the top of your head?
Okay, so it premiered in Sundance in February, but I think shortly after that, we jumped on Hulu like in March.
Huh. Okay.
Well, we watched it last fall.
It was not recent, or within the time it came out.
July 10th, 2020.
Yeah, so I think we watched it probably around August or September-ish, probably. No, but we enjoyed it a lot. Like we didn't realize, we just thought it was like an Andy Samberg, Lonely Island produced film. I really liked Popstar that Lonely Island did that did not do very well box office wise, but it's still a really decent movie. So I'm like, let's watch Palm Springs, and we watched it, and I loved the hell out of it. It was a
Mhm.
really good film. It was a really good,
Oh yeah, same here.
like sci-fi but not sci-fi time loop kind of thing.
Yeah.
It was a nice grounded sci-fi, which is kind of
Mhm.
nice.
Yeah, no, I watched Palm Springs, and then when it was over, I just kicked myself in the butt. Like, why didn't I watch this sooner? Like, because all I want to do now is rewatch it, but I have to watch all these other movies first.
I know. It was really good. Like, it was a very simple concept. Like,
Mhm.
it makes a time loop not seem too complicated, which is
Mhm.
nice.
Right, because I think the strongest element of it is the emotional core of focusing on the human element of the movie, of the story.
Yes.
Yeah, I agree.
On Andy Samberg's characters and all the other characters. So like having that emotionally grounded element to it that's so strong in the movie, like seriously, like this is really strong emotional core in this film.
Right, yeah.
It makes like, you know, the time loop is more of like background noise as a setting. It's a background to tell the story, which I think is great. It's the way sci-fi should be written, where it's like, you know, it is all built around to tell the story of your characters and their development. It's not like, you know, just focusing on the concept itself, because then that gets boring.
Yeah, I agree. And like the characters, like you said, are very strong. Like
Mhm.
you understand like why Sarah like doesn't really care and why she's so apathetic because of like what she did, like what she did at the beginning of the film to
Right.
get her into the time loop.
Mm-hmm.
Andy Samberg is kind of like not down on his luck, but I don't want to call him like a piece of crap either. But
Well, yeah, I mean, like he's been stuck in the time loop for many years. Like who knows how long he's been in that time loop, and he just kind of becomes a nihilist. Like, you know, oh, nothing really matters. I'm just gonna you know, do my thing every day and just have a good time.
yeah, enjoy that I'm here essentially. And then same thing with like J.K. Simmons. Like J.K. Simmons being in this role or in this movie was awesome.
Mhm.
Just watching him hunt down Andy Samberg gave me so much joy for no reason.
That was a surprise for me because I didn't really know anything before going in except for like it's supposed to be really good. And I watched it. And it was like when they revealed J.K. Simmons, I was like, oh my god.
Oh my god, they got J.K. Simmons. J. Jonah Jameson.
He needs pictures of Spider-Man every day.
I don't know, but Jordan, what did you think of Palm Springs?
I really liked it. I liked it more than I thought I was going to.
Yeah.
Because I watched the trailer and stuff, and it looked really interesting. And then Kyler was tweeting about it and
Right.
all the time, who's also been on Committee Critics. And he was tweeting about it, and he was just like, "This is such a good movie." And I was like, "Okay, I'm gonna trust you," because sometimes my opinions and Kyler's opinions don't always match up. But we watched it, and I was thoroughly impressed with it.
Mhm.
And I thought it was going to be more like a Lonely Island thing, like Zach said. And because I have never seen Popstar, the first time we watched it was 2 weeks ago. So that was an interesting time. But I really liked it. I also liked how Sarah's character was the one who solved the problem.
Yeah, that was really cool.
Because she taught herself like physics and like all about
Quantum, not just physics, quantum physics.
Quantum astrophysics. Let's get the title correct here.
Like that's kind of amazing. And it like for me it kind of made me think too, like if I was stuck in a time loop, like what would I want to do? Like would I be more like Andy Samberg and just kind of do whatever the hell I want to, or would I actually like try to teach myself a bunch of different things because I'm living the same day over and over? Like I don't have to worry about money, I don't have to worry about like shelter. I can just learn quantum astrophysics if I wanted to and do what I want to do.
Right, yeah.
So that part I really liked, that kind of concept.
Yeah, I feel like it's a much stronger time loop film than even like Groundhog Day, which kind of started the whole thing.
Yeah, I haven't even seen Groundhog Day. I don't really know if I want to see Groundhog Day for this one, to be honest with you.
It's a classic. It's a classic, but I feel like after watching Palm Springs, you kind of be disappointed. But we kind of to start wrapping up. Definitely, like if you're not really into independent films, if you haven't really like watched an independent film before, but you want to be part of the challenge, Palm Springs is a good starting point. Like it is the most like a normal film, quote unquote normal film that you will see on this list.
I wish Palm Springs had like a theater distribution because I do think like it could be like Oscar worthy. Like there are some good
100%.
Yeah, there are some good parts about it, but since it's probably like it's only streaming service, it probably won't see anything at the Oscars. Sadly.
Well, okay, so it appeared at Sundance and it won, basically quote unquote won Sundance, and I want to say it did a small theater run in LA because that's all you need to do to be part of eligible for an Oscar, just be premiere at least one registered LA theater for like a week or two.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
To be part of the Oscars. I don't know. Well, the Oscar nominees aren't going to be announced until March 15th. So like we'll see if they get nominated for best comedy or best screenplay. I really hope so.
I hope they do too.
Really good. But yeah, so the Palm Springs is a good one. It's a good starting point. I feel like the half of it is a Netflix teen rom-com is a really good second step as well.
Yes.
And then after that, have you seen it?
No, I just
She
like
loves
teen rom-coms.
It's such a good teen rom-com. Very good representation of both Chinese and LGBT.
My
And-
favorite.
I have seen it.
Have you?
Yeah, the main character, she lives next to a train station, right?
Yes.
Oh my god, I have seen it. I really liked that one.
There you go.
Take that, Zach.
Does that mean I have to watch that, or does Jordan count for me?
Do you want to be part of the discussion?
Fine, I'll watch it.
It's a good one. I think
It's really good.
I
It's
did really like it.
Yeah, no, it's really good. I feel like the pacing kind of falls apart in the second half, but like it really pulls itself together in the end.
Yeah.
Such a great message too. Then after that, I recommend Sound of Metal on Amazon Prime. I just also want to note that when you watch Sound of Metal, watch it with captions on. It is a story about a drummer who starts to lose his hearing and may potentially have to give up his career in music. And the director has the captions reflect kind of like what he hears.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
So, when some things sound distorted, like it will say it's distorted. So you're not supposed to understand what they're saying.
Huh.
And then there are segments where sign language is used. And when the main character doesn't know sign language, there's no caption for the sign language. But when he starts to learn sign language, like it starts being
that's
captioned.
unique.
So
That's
That's really
cool.
cool. Yeah.
yeah, so it's real. So yeah, highly recommend watching with captions. Part of the director's original vision. You can look that up, see his whole explanation of that as well. But before we end the episode, do you guys have any closing thoughts?
No, I'm excited to watch a couple more movies. I haven't watched a lot of movies in a while, and I think when we watched Popstar the other night, that was nice to just kind of sit down and watch a film again.
Yeah.
Not in the theaters.
And
Even though I said I prefer sitting at home, like I do miss going to the theaters.
Oh, definitely. But we can't do that right now unless you want to die.
I'm
but
excited too.
yeah, you may be surprised what is considered independent. Like the Invisible Man is nominated. It's on HBO Max, and that one got really big when it came out. That one's an independent movie. Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, the last performance with Chadwick Boseman. Netflix is an independent film. So yeah, check out the list that we have linked in the description, and just see what sounds interesting, and then just kind of dive in.
Let's go.
Rip the Band-Aid off.
Rip the man.
Dive into the deep end, and expose yourself to some culture.
And Kevin, just for quick clarification, we're only doing the movies, right? Because I looked up the list, and there's some TV shows are also nominated, but we're only doing the movies, correct?
In terms of the challenge, you can do just the movies, and it's totally fine.
Okay.
It's about just watching as much as you can. I will be trying to watch the shows as well, because it's mini series. It's not like multiple seasons, just one season stuff.
Right. Yeah.
So I will try to watch as much as I can, but when we get to the predictions, it'll mostly be like what we have seen and most knowledgeable about.
Cool. Sounds good. Alrighty. Well,
this has been another episode of Committed Critics. Thanks for joining us. You can follow us on Twitter at Committed Crits. That is COMMITTED CRITS. You can follow us on YouTube as well, Committed Critics, spelled the same there as it is here and everywhere else. You can support us on Patreon in the link below, and special thanks to sound engineer Jordan Smearman, who's right here right now, so she can react to my praise.
Yay!
Thanks, Jordan.
No problem.
And we'll see you next week on Committed Critics. Bye-bye.
See ya.
Bye.